You're listening to the Ordinary Vegan Podcast, where we teach you everything you need to know about adopting a plant-based diet full or part-time. Our goal is to empower you to live a long and healthy life. If you have any questions, please send an email to questions@ordinaryvegan.net.
Hello, friends, and welcome to podcast number 103. Childhood trauma, the link to disease and brain health. If we haven't met, my name is Nancy Montori, and since 2011, I have been the founder of Ordinary Vegan. My mission has always been, and still is, to guide and help people create powerful, healthy, lifelong habits through a compassionate, plant-based approach. And nobody here needs to be perfect. Today, I want to tackle a subject that might be hard for any of us to talk about, and that is childhood trauma and the deep impact it could have on our health and wellness. I think many people have the tendency to downplay their trauma, and there are several reasons for this. It can be a coping mechanism or a way to protect ourselves from the emotional pain it can bring up. I mean, nobody wants to feel pain. Also, minimizing trauma can also stem from a fear of judgment or a fear of guilt. But when I found out exposure to trauma during childhood can dramatically increase people's risk for 7 out of 10 of the leading causes of death in the United States, I knew it was something we needed to talk about. Many times, just knowing the cause of an illness can be helpful. Often, people will do a lot of self-blaming when they are diagnosed with an illness when it's not their fault. So talking about the hard stuff sucks, but it can also be very healing because it allows us to process and make sense of our experiences. And by sharing our experiences with others, can help us feel more connected and not alone. Unfortunately, the trauma caused by childhood neglect, sexual or domestic abuse can wreak havoc in our bodies. One of my favorite books about childhood trauma and adversity is Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. When Maya Angelou was 8 years old, she was molested by her mother's boyfriend. Maya told authorities, which led to the boyfriend being jailed and later murdered by Maya's uncles. After the death of her mother's boyfriend, Maya stopped speaking for nearly 5 years because she thought her voice had killed him. But this isn't a sad ending. Maya Angelou turned to literature and poetry, reclaimed her voice, and became one of the most influential writers of the 20th century. Maya Angelou says, quote, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." So, today I'll start with my story. I've never shared this out loud, and actually I've only shared it with 2 or 3 people in my life. So here it goes. When I was 11 years old, I had a stalker. He was a man in his late teens who lived on the street that I grew up on. He started noticing me when I was about 10. He would say things like, "You're going to be so nice when you get older." I instinctively didn't like him. Wherever I would go, he would show up. Heading home was always the hardest part. There were only 3 ways to get home to avoid him: walk by his house, or take the long walk down from the top of the street, or go through a short alley from the next street over. One day, I chose the alley. The alley provided a short distance between 2 streets and my home, and I thought it was the safest choice. I ran the distance, and I was almost at the end. I could even see the stairs to my house, and I knew I could run up them and be safe. Home was about 100 feet away from me when he tackled me. He smelled like dirt. I kicked and bit and somehow I got away from him, but not from his words. He yelled after me, "I'm going to get you someday. I promise." So I lived in fear. My entire existence was centered around how to avoid my stalker. Of course, there's more to that story, which someday I will share, but the last thing I want to do is trigger someone else's trauma today. I never told anyone. I stuffed it away until I was 50 years old when I finally told my therapist. Now, I wish I had examined that trauma at a much younger age. I think many of the mistakes I made in relationships and most of my poor judgments were definitely connected to that fear and trauma. And understanding that connection was the first step towards healing for me. Now, numerous research studies strongly indicate that experiencing childhood trauma can lead to an increased potential for many adult diseases, including obesity, diabetes, cancer, and stroke, as well as mental health challenges such as depression, anxiety, and PTSD. I know right now none of this seems easy to fix, and I know you can't take a childhood trauma back, but there are things we can do to help heal ourselves, and we're going to talk about that. Let's first talk about ACE, A-C-E. There is something called the ACE study, and it is considered one of the most helpful and impactful research initiatives. ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, which are traumatic events that occur during childhood. The ACE study originated from a collaboration between the CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention here in the United States, and Kaiser in 1995. The study examined the connection between childhood adversity and later life health and wellness. Over 17,000 people completed confidential surveys regarding their childhood experiences and their current health status and behaviors. The study found a strong correlation between childhood trauma and the increased risk of many negative health outcomes later in life. The original ACE study focused on 3 categories of childhood adversity: physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, as well as neglect and household dysfunction. This eventually led to an ACE test, which is a questionnaire created to assess the impact of traumatic experiences during childhood on a person's health and well-being in life. It's basically a tool to understand that relationship between your childhood trauma and your adult health. The test aims to identify and quantify these experiences to understand the potential impact on later life health issues. I have put the test up on my website, and you can go to ordinaryvegan.net/ACE to take the test. Please remember this when you take the ACE test. ACE scores don't tally the positive experiences in early life that can help build strength and help protect a child from the effects of trauma, like loving grandparents or any secure attachment with a safe, caring adult. It's just a reminder of the many things we had to face as children and how it could be affecting us in adulthood. A low ACE score, 0 to 3, is generally considered good, as it suggests lower risk for chronic health issues and social problems like drugs and alcohol. A score of 4 or higher indicates a higher risk, with each additional point representing a higher likelihood of experiencing various health and social challenges. The ACE test helps with trauma by providing a way to assess and understand the impact of childhood trauma on individual lives so you can understand the potential effects and tailor interventions accordingly. Adverse childhood experiences not only take a physical toll, they can also create anxiety, depression, persistent fear, hypervigilance, and difficulty making and maintaining relationships. And trauma is a deep personal experience, and its impact varies significantly from person to person, even within the same traumatic event. And trauma can just be a basic need of childhood that is just not given to us, like love, bonding, and emotional connection. That trauma can have an effect on your brain. The human brain is the most complex structure in the universe, and scientists, neurologists, and psychologists are still learning how it works. And it is fascinating how much they are learning. Let's start with bonding in the brain. How you bond with your caregivers impacts you from cradle to grave. When adequate bonding between a child and a caregiver is lacking, the child grows up with a defective ability to trust the world. Scientists know about parental bonding in the brain from studies done on children from Romanian orphanages during the 1980s and 1990s. Children laid in cribs all day except when being fed, diapered, or bathed on a set schedule. They received no stimulation and denied any chance to bond with adults. MRI scans and other measures were taken by researchers and showed that these neglected children had less white matter in their brains compared to children with loving families. White matter is considered the wiring of the brain. The affected white brain region includes nerve bundles that are involved in attention, emotion processing, and general cognition. The good news is the brain has a remarkable ability to rewire itself and attune for things that go wrong during childhood, including problems caused by childhood trauma. Here are some of the things you can do to modify and strengthen white brain matter. Start by considering your brain a muscle, and exercising the brain can help strengthen it and increase white matter. Research has found that physical activities as simple as walking and dancing combined with proper nutrition generates activity in multiple brain regions, and just like your body, it can stretch and tone the brain's white matter integrity. Learning new skills, like learning to play an instrument or learning a new exercise like bike riding. Meditation can also strengthen white matter pathways and improve cognitive function. Meditation has been so helpful to me. I believe just 10 minutes a day can change everything, so I highly recommend it. Another activity is sleep. Getting enough sleep is crucial for overall brain health, including white matter function. And according to a study done by the Alzheimer's Center for Research, social engagement has been associated with reduced risk of dementia and can be a factor in white matter damage. Last but not least, a diet rich in healthy fats can be a big help. Those foods include nuts, chia seeds, hemp seeds, nut butters, tahini, and avocados, which include omega fatty acids. Every healthy fat you eat is brain food. Omega fatty acids, particularly omega-3s, offer several health benefits, including improved heart health, reduced inflammation, and has potential benefits for mental health. They are essential nutrients that the body cannot produce on its own, so they must be obtained through diet. Even if you have a low score on the ACE test, All of these suggestions are going to improve your white matter, and keeping the white matter of your brain is crucial to protect your brain from cognitive loss and dementia, especially as we age. Another part of the brain that is affected by childhood trauma is called the amygdala. Your amygdala, the size of an almond and derived from the Greek word for almond, is a small part of your brain located in the temporal lobe of your brain. It is right behind the temple area on each side of your head. It is a small part of your brain and has a very big job. It is the major processing center for emotions, especially fear, and anxiety. It also has a role in the processing of memory, decision-making, and emotional response, including fear and aggression. The amygdala's job, in general, is to signal to the rest of the brain when you are faced with something uncertain. 10 years ago, researchers at Stanford University School of Medicine found that measuring the size and connectivity of the amygdala can predict the degree of anxiety a young child is experiencing in daily life. Even in children as young as ages 7 to 9, high childhood anxiety is associated with an enlarged amygdala volume. Recent research on the amygdala suggests that it plays a significant role in various conditions, including PTSD, depression, and addiction, including a study that showed that increased activity during pregnancy may be linked to a higher risk of postpartum depression. While there isn't a direct way to help the amygdala in the sense of treatment, you can take steps to manage its activity and promote healthier emotional responses. And here is a recurring theme. There is growing body of research that meditation appears to shrink the amygdala. MRI scans show that after an 8-week course of mindfulness practice, the brain's flight or fight center appears to shrink. Our primal responses to stress are altered, and we feel less stress and fear with meditation. Also, exposure to nature has been shown to decrease amygdala activity, potentially reducing stress and related brain activity. And again, just like white matter, mindfulness meditation has been shown to reduce activation and help with emotional regulation. Other practices such as deep breathing and muscle relaxation can help calm the amygdala. Exercise such as hiking, Pilates, or yoga can regulate activity. There is a therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, that helps individuals manage problems by changing the way they think and behave. It's often used to treat mental health conditions like depression and anxiety, or even chronic pain or grief. Many people have had remarkable success with EMDR. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a therapy technique used to treat mental health conditions, particularly those linked to traumatic memories. EMDR involves using specific eye movements or other bilateral stimulation while processing distressing memories, helping to reduce the negative emotions and beliefs associated with them. I will put a link to the EMDR Institute in my podcast notes, and if you are interested in finding someone to do that with. Once again, a nutrient-rich diet can support overall brain health. So I know all this is easier said than done, but by incorporating these practices into your daily life, you can help regulate your brain's activity and reduce stress and anxiety. Brain health is crucial. It directly impacts our quality of life every single day. And if there are some activities that are easy to do, it would be so beneficial to make time to add these activities into your life. And I hope you do. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I would like to end with a quote from Bruce Springsteen. He said, "You have to put together a person from all the stuff that you've been handed." And I know you will. So we work with what we have and use the many tools out there to help us. If you thought today's podcast was beneficial, please leave a review and rating. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Ordinary Vegan. I forgot to mention in the last podcast that I am returning to the holistic holiday at sea, an all plant-based cruise to Alaska. It is full of wonderful speakers, fun fitness, relaxation, and delicious healthy food. If you mention Ordinary Vegan when you sign up, you will receive an onboard credit, and I want to personally invite you to a get-together on board. So let's party. This main voyage to Alaska is from August 31st to September 7th, 2025. Hope you can join us. Till next time.
Thanks for joining our plant-based community today. Together, we can accomplish great things. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of Ordinary Vegan's recipes and plant-based tips. If you have any questions or feedback, email us at questions@ordinaryvegan.net. Until next time.